started with our webinar. Thank you again for joining us. Today's webinar is part of a series designed to support school and district leaders with their efforts to develop their local educator workforce. Of course, we believe educator evaluation is a key leverage point and opportunity to support educator growth and continuous improvement in local systems. And we look forward to highlighting some ways that your work today can be supported with some of our guidance today. If you haven't had a chance to look at the documents and resources at the bottom of the page, please take some time to look at those throughout the webinar today. There's files available for download with calculator tools and guidance documents around our work for student growth percentiles, as well as some helpful web links and examples that might also help your work with student growth percentiles. If by any chance you've connected through the phone line today, please make sure that you mute your office phone just to avoid any feedback for the rest of the participants. Other than that, we are ready to roll, and thank you again for joining us on our webinar today. It is really our honor to host this meeting for many educators across the state. My name is Joe Priest. I am a consultant here at MDE working with educator evaluations. Our lead presenter on the webinar today will be Ryan Lloyd. Brian is an education research consultant here at MDE, and one of Brian's areas of focus at the department is to support districts with the measurement of student growth for educator evaluation. We're very excited to share some content with you to support your practices and support your goals towards the continuous improvement of systems in your district. And we also, of course, want to encourage your participation during the live webinar today. We do have a question and answer pod on the right side of your screen where you can post any questions that you have through the course of the webinar today. We're going to do our best to answer those during the webinar, as well as take some time towards the closing part of our webinar to answer live any questions that might be pressing from the group. To follow up on your questions after the webinar, we'll be sending out an expanded question and answer document with some more guidance and feedback based on your questions. As part of that follow-up communication after the webinar, we'll also send out a copy of today's presentation and a link to a recording of the webinar for your use in your districts if you so choose. Participants in the live webinars are eligible to earn sketch credit to be used toward recertification. However, we are tracking that live participation and attendance throughout the webinar series, but you won't receive the official email from the MOEX system to confirm your presentation until the end of the entire webinar series in May. So we'll be tracking attendance along the way, and we'll be finalizing the sketch presentation at the conclusion of the webinar. We're going to get started here, so thank you again for joining us today. Today's webinar focuses on the use of student growth percentiles, SGPs, for state assessment data for inclusion within educator evaluations. Today's webinar will define SGPs as well as provide some practical resources to support your implementation. In the Office of Educator Excellence here at Michigan Department of Education, we highlight the terms rigorous, transparent, and fair as key phrases that should help define effective educator evaluation systems. We also believe that educator evaluation can support educators and support districts when that information in the evaluation supports what happens in the classrooms and helps to set common goals to set success criteria for students, teachers, and administrators. And we also believe that educator evaluation can support a continuous improvement mindset for educators, as well as provide a process to guide that continuous improvement of professional practice. We also acknowledge that making decisions for the measurement of student growth for educator evaluation is complex and challenging. To support this decision making, we provide guidance that educator evaluations should and can support teacher autonomy, while also having structures and checks and balances to provide comparable results within the system. We acknowledge that all approaches to measuring student growth contain opportunities and challenges, and our goal when we talk to districts is to help districts see the benefits of different approaches as well as any drawbacks that are inherent to different methods of measuring student growth. ultimately to support the best decision making for what will work best within your local system. The chart on this slide illustrates the legislative requirements for measuring student growth for educator evaluations. For all teachers in Michigan, 60% of evaluation ratings must be based on the adopted evaluation and feedback tool, while 40% must be based on student growth and assessment data. For teachers of record in grades 4 through 8 in the subject areas of ELA and math, half of that 40%, 20% of the overall, must be based on the state assessment results. Our webinar today presents one approach to measuring student growth for state assessment. The weightings that you see on the charts on this slide are based on the latest educator evaluation legislation from 2015. We do like to mention that during 2018 there was a House Bill 5707, that was drafted to alter these weightings. While the bill was approved by the House, it was not signed by the governor prior to the end of term. So as of January 2019, where we're sitting right now, these graphics remain accurate to describe the legislative weightings for educator evaluations in our state. Of course, additional legislative action could take place in 2019 or in the future. We do recommend, though, that all districts are prepared to calculate evaluation ratings based on these current requirements. On the next set of slides, Brian's going to talk to you and share some content and resources that can support districts with their use of student growth percentiles for educator evaluation.
Thanks, Joe. Hello, everybody. So we're going to go through resources that MDE's developed over the past 3 years to help districts with measurement of state assessment, student growth, for use within educator evaluations. The MDE released in April, I believe, of 2017, a technical guide for the use of student growth percentiles within educator evaluations. That technical guide is publicly posted and is available for download. There's the link that you see provides that PDF document, and there's also in the files below, you can click on the link in the files below to also access the document. This document provides step-by-step guide for using the MDE SGP Student Growth Calculator tool that includes step-by-step instructions with pictures and indicators of exactly what to do and how to use it. There is also an instructional video for the use of the MDE SGP Student Growth Calculator tool. But first, a little bit more on the what is student growth percentiles? What are SGPs? Student growth percentiles provide comparison information for the changes in scores between 2 points of time for students with prior score histories. So similar or almost identical. So SGPs do not provide static information. They provide an indication of growth between 2 different points in time. And in the case of state assessment, between one assessment year period and the next, so from 2016 MSTEP to 2017 MSTEP, for example. SGPs provide similar information about the magnitude. So it describes how large or how small academic growth was using a measurement of change in scores between the 2 different points in time. So SGPs also compare students who are not proficient against other students who are not proficient. And they compare students who are advanced against other students who are advanced. So there's a leveling of the playing field. This leveling of the playing field is not perfect, but this metric does provide, it does better represent the impact of instruction over the course of 1 year than the use of any proficiency measure, which has proficiency measures have inherent to them a representation of all of the learning that came before, and does not necessarily represent the growth of learning within one instructional year. And SGPs do provide a metric of growth and an indicator of the impact of instruction by providing an indication of how large or how small growth was over the course of one academic year. So in more detailed terms, if we had a student, Susie Smith, who had in 2016 a scale score of 1634, she's a 7th grade student. In previous years, she had a score of 1510 and a score of 1412. She would be compared against all other students with either those exact scores or almost identically scores. So it's not even necessarily, it's not just comparing against the most recent scores, but a set of previous scores as well. So this comparison group is formed, and then a change occurs. So a year of instruction occurs. Then 2017 M-STEP is administered. The student achieved a score of 1694. Another student within her comparison group scored 1704, another 1712, 1686, 1674. So these scores, changes in scores, and the scores within this comparison group vary, and they vary at least based partially on the instruction that they've received over the course of the academic year. So then these changes in scores, then this student had a change of score that was higher than in this comparison group than Susie's, right? This student had a score change of 78. This student, Susie had a change of score of 60. This student had a score change of 40. So this student had grew, this score improved, but improved less than other students within this comparison group throughout the course of the year and within 1 year of receiving instruction. So these changes in scores are normed using a fairly complex calculation to determine percentiles for these changes in scores. And these normings of the scores, and this is a simplified explanation, but the norming of these scores then determine the student's student growth percentiles. So Susie was right in the middle. Her change was right in the middle of her comparison group. So she would receive she earned a student growth percentile of 50. She was a student growth percentile of 50. She was right in the middle. The student had a much larger change at a student growth percentile of 95. The student who did grow but grew much less than the other students within her comparison group had a SGP of 5, indicating a smaller amount of growth, but still a smaller amount of growth. So these provide percentiles that indicate the magnitude of growth. And that essentially is, and perhaps oversimplified, but an explanation of how SGPs are determined. So Joe mentioned before that for teachers of record who receive state assessment, who have state assessment data available to them, 20% of their evaluation, half of the required 40% that determine summative ratings, is to be state assessment student growth. The determination of what is a tested grading subject that is required to use state assessment within educator evaluations following the legislation is recommended by MDE to be grades 4 through 8 in subjects ELA and math. So this does beg the question, well, we have state assessment for science and social studies. We have state assessment in 11th grade as well. The science and social studies assessments have 3-year gaps between data points. The 11th grade state assessment represents the growth between 8th grade and 11th grade. So you could have the best teacher in the entire world in 10th grade. And you could have, conceivably, the worst teacher in the entire world in 9th grade. And you would only have one score that would represent the growth of both, the impact of instruction for both of those teachers. That is inherently inequitous. That is not fair. It also opens up districts to the possibility of justifiable challenges to educator evaluation results, and doesn't follow the guiding rule of common sense, right? If the purpose of educator evaluation is to provide an indicator of the impact of the teacher's instruction, and you use a score that's representative of 3 to 4 different teachers' instruction within that score to represent the impact, by design, you will not be providing an accurate indication of that teacher's impact of instruction. Following the guidance of our technical advisory committee and best practice in research literature, as well as what 100% of other states who are using SGPs for educator evaluation, we recommend that for teacher evaluation, grades 4 through 8 in ELA and math are the recommended test grades and subjects. So knowing that the individual attribution recommendation for SGPs is grades 4 through 8 in ELA and math, the legislation also does require that 3 years of state assessment data be aggregated. And districts do have choices for how state assessment student growth is assigned to teachers and administrators. So the guidance that we provide for how to determine student growth ratings, or how to determine ratings using student growth percentiles, is to use the mean of student growth percentiles, and to use a mean of student growth percentiles aggregated when the data is available over a 3-year period of time. So for teachers, the recommended method of aggregating SGPs within any school year is and over the course of 3 school years, is to determine the mean of each one of those school years and of the 3-year school period for all student growth percentiles for which the teacher is teacher of record in subjects ELA and math or math in grades 4 through 8. For administrators, the mean of all ELA and SGPs for students for which the administrator is responsible for student growth. So there are a number of different choices in districts across the state, in our conversations through our workshops and webinars and through our personal interactions. We found that districts are using differing policies for assigning student growth percentiles to teachers and to teachers of different assignment types. Many districts are assigning student growth percentiles to only teachers of record in ELA and math in grades 4 through 8. Some are making the point that all teachers within a school are ELA teachers, or ELA and math teachers, or all math teachers. And so therefore they're assigning ELA and SGPs to teachers who are not teachers of record. And there are some good reasons for that. 2 recommended rules of thumb, just recommendations and requirement for using ELA and math SGPs to determine ratings for teachers of record for subjects that don't include ELA and math. First rule of thumb is have collaborative conversations with those teachers about whether or not they are teachers of ELA and math. If you haven't yet had that conversation, it's a good and productive conversation to have, and can often mitigate problems or difficulties before they get to be much larger ones. And number two, use ELA and math assessments, student growth data, as a non-predominant portion of their student growth rating. I've yet to meet or talk to a teacher of music that they may teach ELA, they may teach math, but I've yet to meet a music teacher in the state of Michigan who does not spend the vast majority of their time teaching music. And that there are a number of students across the state of Michigan whose careers are going to be predicated upon their success within music, with music, right? So that subject is important, and we should value the growth and success and the success criteria of within that subject. The continuous improvement of students within that subject area is critically important, and so therefore the use of student growth to assist with and help with the continuous improvement of educators within that subject area is also important. So the data that's used with an educator evaluation should be reflective of the teacher's impact on that student and be reflective of the primary work and the success criteria for those teachers. ELA student SGPs and state assessments may be part of teachers of record who are not ELA in math, but it is recommended that they not be a predominant portion. So less than 50% of whatever student growth rating is determined using student growth data. So there are a lot of different methods that districts are using to assign SGPs to teachers across the state. So one, maybe the most common is using SGPs or EVAS, a value-added model that we'll speak on in a webinar next week, or another model if that data is available to you, is through individual teachers' assignments. So teachers are assigned all SGP scores for students for whom they are teacher of record. So within a school or school district, the SGPs are used to determine 20% or half of that 40%, and then another model is used for the other half of that 40% or 20% total, using a model like student learning objectives that MDE has provided a number of guidance and resources around for use of data local to the LEA, non-state assessment, student growth for use within educator evaluations. So only state assessment data is only assigned or attributed to teachers of record in ELA and math and to no other teachers. Some districts have chosen a more equal shared assignment. So all teachers are assigned SGP scores for both ELA and math in grades 4 through 8, in which they are teacher record in any subject area. There are some districts that are using a combination of shared assignment and individual teacher assignment. So a music teacher would have 32% of their educator evaluation be SLO and 8% be SGPs. Now, I want to put one warning here. Student growth percentiles and really all student growth models for measuring student growth with state assessment measures the growth between two points in time, right? So the fourth grade student growth percentiles represent the growth between the third grade M-step and the fourth grade M-step, right? So you should not attribute student growth percentiles in the fourth grade to teachers in third grade or second grade or first grade it isn't representative of the growth between first grade and fourth grade. It is only representative of the growth that's made within fourth grade. So theoretically, you could have below standard instruction in third grade or any of the previous grades, right? And if you had excellent instruction during fourth grade or even standard instruction within fourth grade, at least conceivably, the below standard instruction in previous years could elicit a higher level of growth within fourth grade. So it might not be the case. There's no research to indicate that, but it's the growth that the students make in fourth grade is just not indicative of the growth that is made in second grade or third grade or first grade or kindergarten. So this is why SGP, there's a number of different reasons why MDE has provided the recommendation for grades 4 through 8 in ELA and math, and that is another reason I do want to caution districts against assigning SGPs to earlier grades than fourth grade, because they are not indicative of the growth that the teachers made during those years. Hopefully that does make sense. So now commonly used options in our conversations with districts across the state for assigning SGPs to administrators. Some districts choose to calculate an average or mean of all of the SGPs in the schools for which the administrator is responsible for decisions affecting student growth. There is easily accessible data that's through myschooldata.org that provide mean SGPs for schools and for districts, and that does provide an easy way to access those. Districts may also choose to use weighted average for SGPs to provide more emphasis on certain grades or subject areas that have been identified through the school or through the district improvement processes as having need for greater impact than others. Some districts may choose to simply average the 1 through 4 effectiveness ratings for state assessment data for all teachers supervised by the administrators. So that's a less precise way of determining ratings, but I think it's important to know what different practices are being done across the state, so you know, make informed choices of what other practices other districts are using. So again, I mentioned this earlier, but the legislation that defines educator evaluation rules and regulations is 380-1249, which stipulates that student growth and assessment data must be used for all data that's available for at least at least 3 school years. The annual year-end evaluation shall be based on student growth and assessment data for the most recent 3 consecutive school year period. Now, the elephant in the room, and this may be something that everybody is aware of, but sometimes it is worth noting and pointing out, state educator evaluations ratings are due in to REP at the end of June. State assessment data is typically available to districts in September, hopefully end of August. So the state assessment data is not for the most current year is not available until after the summative ratings are due into REP, which means that the most recent year of state assessment data that will be available for use within educator evaluations would be the prior year. So for the evaluations that are due in June of 2019, the most consecutive 3-year period would be the M-STEP scores from spring of 2018, 2017, and 2016. So using the MDE policy recommendations, districts would aggregate the most recent 3-year period, which would be the M-STEP scores from spring of 2016, 17, and 18. Research also does suggest that aggregating 3 years of student growth percentile data will result in the increase of the stability of estimates of teacher effectiveness. So not only is it legislation, but it is actually research validated practice for aggregating student growth data and coming up with the best determinant of teacher impact. That aggregating 3 years of data does provide more stability and validity and reliability of educator evaluation data. So there are different options for districts to consider for aggregating student growth data across multiple years. Within the MDE student growth calculator tool, the default actually is to aggregate by weighting the average for recency. So the Office of Educator Excellence within MDE has repeatedly states and prioritizes that educator evaluation should be all about facilitation of continuous improvement. So all of our practices and policies are centered around that why. That is the why of educator evaluations. Now, determining when teachers are not being effective, that is a useful byproduct, right? But that is a byproduct. The primary purpose is for facilitation of continuous improvement. That's how improving student-teacher interactions is how we'll become a top 10 in 10 state, and how we're going to have a distribution of excellent teachers across our state. So so we want to reward teachers who facilitate continuous improvement. So weighting a 3-year period by recency, so that the most recent year counts as 0.5 or 50%. The year previous to that is 30%, and the year previous to that is 20%. Does reward a teacher whose practice is improving, whose scores have improved over a 3-year period, because each year would be more recent year would be counted more, and as the scores are improving and the growth is improving, that would improve the rating by waiting for recency. The latency in the use of state assessment data does have an impact on the facilitation of continuous improvement. So we want to try to use policies and practices that do try to reward a continuous improvement to the greatest extent possible. But a simple average, just averaging SGPs over a 3-year period, is also an acceptable aggregating measure as well. And some districts are choosing to do that because they want consistency and making sure that there's a balance across the 3 years, across the 3-year period, and that is also an acceptable procedure. MDE recommends deciding whether or not to wait for recency and what weight should be used for the years, determining that at the district level, because it's, as Joe mentioned earlier, it's very important to promote transparency and fairness across the district within the educator evaluation process. MDE recommends that the 3-year student growth percentile mean score used to derive the state assessment student growth rating scores include at least 20 student growth percentile scores across the 3-year period. And this was based, at least in part, upon the recommendation from our technical advisory committee and from experts in using student growth percentiles. With less than 20 student growth percentile scores, the psychometric values do decrease. The reliability and validity and the accuracy of the impact indication of impact does decrease with less than 20 SGP scores. Now, this isn't less than 20 students, right? If you were a teacher of record in both ELA and math, and you had 10 students who had SGP scores, you would have 20 SGP scores within the 1-year period. But this again is over a 3-year period, how many scores you have over a 3-year period. Now, I think it's also important to note that the caveat here that if you have less than 20 SGP scores, and it is important to note that the reliability and validity of the scores have decreased by crossing that threshold or below that threshold. Educators should consider the use of multiple research-based growth measures or alternative assessments that are rigorous and comparable across schools. Although I do want to point out that if the reason you're not using student growth percentiles or EVAS for that matter is because of the hit in reliability and validity, because of the low number of scores, what is the reliability and validity of the alternative measures or model that you are using, right? Is it better or is it worse than the student growth percentiles that you've chosen not to use because of the decrease in validity? It's just if that's the reason, then it's just an important consideration to have moving forward. MDE provides recommended averages or means of student growth percentiles to determine different ratings. These ratings are based on a number of different criteria, including recommendations from our technical advisory committee that included the inventor of student growth percentiles, Damien Bedebatter, and as well as other experts in using student growth percentiles within educator evaluations. Also an analysis of what other states are doing and analysis of student growth percentile research. So the recommendations are an average mean SGP of 60 or more over a 3-year period would be a student growth rating score of 4, between 40 and 59.9, 3, between 20 and 39.9, a student growth rating score of 2, and anything 19.9 or less would be a student growth rating score of 1. These are recommendations. These are not requirements, but they are recommendations based on some pretty solid reasons and evidence. This slide provides a link and a reminder of something that we said before, especially for administrator evaluations. If you're curious to know what the mean or average SGP is within a given year for your district, for your ISD, for your district, for your school, this data is publicly available to all educators and parents and general public within the myschooldata.org website. And the link to that is provided within this slide. But if you go to My School Data, click on Student Assessments, click on Student Growth, you'll then select the ISD, district, school year, grade, subject area. And if you want to get fancy, the demographic categories, you can determine what your mean SGP is of your entity. So it's a good way to know what your mean SGP scores would be for if you wanted to use that for administrator evaluation. It's also good to know what to estimate what the teacher ratings would be within your school or within your district using the table that we showed you on the previous slide. So we talked about before, MDE has provided a calculator tool, developed a calculator tool to help districts make more efficient the use of SGPs to determine student growth ratings. This SGP tool does require somebody from a district to copy and paste 6 data files. So SGPs are calculated for MSTEP and for My Access Functional Independence. So that's 2 different assessments. And again, we aggregate over a 3-year period, right? So 2 assessments, 3-year period of time, that's 6 data files. So you copy and paste 6 data files into 6 different tabs within this Excel-based tool. And then copy and paste in the UICs for the students for which the teacher taught as teacher of record. By copying and pasting the UICs, it automatically populates each page that represents a school year with the students' names and student growth percentiles for ELA and math. For each one of these tabs, you would toggle to choose whether the teacher was the teacher of record for ELA, teacher of record for math, or for a teacher of record for both ELA and math. So that you could make that selection for each one of the 3 years. Then only the scores that are representative of that subject area would be used to determine each year's norm and the 3-year aggregate norm, and it only weights the year, the SGP. So if you taught in 2016, you didn't teach in 2017, you taught in 2018, it would only include the scores from 2016 and 2018 to determine the 3-year aggregate mean. So it compares that 3-year aggregate mean against that table that I showed you 2 slides ago to determine a 1 through 4 rating that you can use to combine with your teacher framework data and your local student growth data that would be local to your LEA or non-state assessment data. You can combine that 1 through 4 with the 1 through 4 that's generated with your tools, with your framework tools, and with your LEA rating determination to determine a summative rating using the prescriptive weightings that are defined within 380-1249. Now, this student growth calculator tool, which you can download from the links below. You can also go to MDE's website and browse to find it. You can also click on the links on this webinar itself. It reduces 272 distinct steps that would otherwise be needed to be used to determine these ratings to essentially 9 steps. Now there's 14 steps that you do have to do once, and then hit file, save as, and now you can use it for all other teachers in the district. There's 9 more steps that need to be done. But it isn't, so it's much more efficient than if the tool did not exist, but it is 9 steps that require copying and pasting, right? And so we have worked hard to try to make some options available to districts across the state. And I should also point out that one reason why we have to work to develop options and we had to work to develop this spreadsheet tool is MDE does not have access or any functional access to any teacher rosters across the state. We do have TSDL, but TSDL cannot be used for this purpose for a variety of different reasons. And so MDE has no way of knowing who Joe Smith taught in 5th grade in X elementary or Y middle school. So MDE has no access to teacher rosters for teachers across the state. So we need either districts to put put this data in themselves using that spreadsheet tool, or work with vendors or entities such as My Data Hub that do have the ability to integrate state assessment data with student information systems that do have access to teacher rosters and that can integrate that data to much more efficiently provide these student growth reports. So we've worked with vendors that districts were already using across the state. So Illuminate has replicated the MDE student growth percentile calculator tool to provide more efficient reports that could be available within a few clicks. IDEX has replicated the MDE student growth percentile tool and has this report functionality available within a few clicks. Munetrics has replicated the MDE student growth percentile tool. And in our school data has replicated the SGP tool. So these are data warehouse tools or are tools that are already in use with districts across the state. That many districts, not all, but many districts do have already relationships with and are currently using and are familiar with the with the interface and how to generate reports with it. So if you have not yet used, if you already have a relationship with these vendors and have not used or accessed the reports, the SGP reports that are available from these vendors, then you may want to contact your vendors to have them help you through how to use their report system to be able to generate these SGP reports that are replications of the MDE SGP report. And if you would like, these relationships were formed by primarily with districts facilitating connections with MDE, with myself and the vendor that they were using, the data warehouse that they were using to develop student growth reports for them. So if you were using a vendor that is not listed within this list, that you would like to have MDE work with to replicate the student growth reports, I encourage you to set up a meeting with me and your data warehouse vendor contact, and we will work to make things as efficient and easy for you as possible. So before we move on, I see we have one question that's been posted, and I can only assume that means that all questions have been answered throughout the course of the webinar. And that was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes that doesn't come through in webinars, so I apologize for that. So the first question here is, how does moving to PSAT impact using SGPs? As an excellent question. Now remember that for the evaluations that are due in June of 2019, will be required to use because of the timing that we have with our assessment environment and when ratings are due in REP. The ratings that are going to be determined in June of 2019 are going to use the M-STEP assessments or the state assessments from 2018, 17, and 16, right? So PSAT 8 was not in use, was not required in 2017. So for the evaluations due this year, the evaluations that are due this June, this is not an issue. Now, for the evaluations due in 2018, we haven't yet determined what that policy is going to be, but what that probably is going to mean is that SGPs are going to be available in grades 4 through 7 in the ELA math. And we have not yet determined whether student growth percentiles are going to be available for 8th grade. So that grade band of SGP or of state assessment data may shrink from 4 to 8 to 4 through 7. That hasn't yet been determined yet, but we will determine that prior to the start of the next school year when that does need to be determined. So hopefully that does answer that question. I will also say, though, that we MDE is at least investigating the possibility of calculating student growth percentiles for PSAT to PSAT and PSAT to SAT to provide within-year growth or year-to-year growth for PSAT for 8th grade to 9th grade, 9th grade to 10th grade, 10th grade to 11th grade. So hopefully that provides high schools with a little bit better student growth data than would otherwise be available to them. That we're investigating this based on a number of different requests from districts across the state who would really like to be able to use for a variety of different reasons, and one of those reasons being educator evaluation, viable student growth data that can be used for those variety of purposes. So just to let you know that is at least a possibility that MD is investigating, but MD is still in the investigation phase of developing those student level SGP scores for College Board assessment. So I went a little bit beyond the question that was asked by Nanette there, but hopefully that does provide some answer. Joe Priest, thanks Joe, answered the question about do we plan on sharing this presentation? It's going to be publicly available on YouTube eventually once we get it through ADA compliance processing. And what data is used for a first-year teacher? Excellent question. We get asked this question a lot. So luckily the legislation does state that the 3 years of student growth data must be used when available, right? What state assessment student growth data is available for use for the first-year teacher? There is no state assessment student growth data that is available for the first-year teacher. The state assessment data that is in use within the current year is the assessment data that represents the growth from the previous year when the teacher was still either in another district or in a graduate school or in a teacher prep program. So there is no data that is available. So that means that that first-year teacher would be essentially have the same conditions as the teacher who is not a teacher record in ELA or math in grades 4 through 8, and would be required to use data that's more dynamic within your student growth data for use within their educator evaluation. So they would have 40% of their student growth would be dynamic LEA student growth data to determine those that first-year teacher student growth rating. And hopefully that does make sense. Then Evan asked, myschoolData.org has mean SGPs for our high school. How is that calculated? That represents the growth, again, between 8th grade and the 8th grade MSTEP and the 11th grade SAT. We do not recommend the use of those SGPs for use with an educator for teacher evaluation. And because again, it represents the growth. You could have the best teacher in 10th grade, the worst teacher in 9th grade, and there's only one score that represents the impact of both of those teachers. It would open up districts to potential litigation and challenges to the results used within their educator evaluation. So hopefully that provides an answer to that question, to Evan's question. Okay, looks like that's all the questions we have for right now. So we're going to move on to, and if you think of more questions, if you do ask the questions as we move on, if you think of questions later, you feel free to go ahead and post those to their Q&A, or you can also email me any questions that you have. I think I'm fairly responsive. So how could SGPs be used to determine summative ratings? We have summative rating calculator tools that we don't publicly post, but we do make available upon request. If you have a vendor provided product that does automate the aggregating of differing data sources to determine summative rating that's consistent with the prescriptive weightings within 380-1249, use those because we want things to be as efficient as possible. But we do have calculator tools that help combine SGP ratings with teacher practice of the frameworks and data that is local to the LEA to determine summative ratings as a way to try to help districts across the state provide a fair and transparent way to determine summative ratings. Some districts are also choosing to include SGP or state assessment data using rubrics. This is an example from Niles Community Schools where they had a very collaborative process involving their teacher leaders and administrators and central office staff to determine success criteria for differing assessments to determine summative ratings and what the criteria for each one of those assessments are to determine those summative ratings. So this was we have workshops that do help districts through developing this process as well. So I also want to plug our webinar that we will be having next week. SGPs is one model that is available to districts for using state assessment student growth that can be used within educator evaluation. Another student growth reporting system that is available to districts across the state is a value-added model, student growth data called EVOS that's provided to us from a vendor. SAS is the vendor. We will be having that vendor speak through their reporting system at our webinar on January 25th at 9 a.m. And the registration for that webinar is available on the link on this page. So just to let you know that there'll be some expert guidance provided for this value-added model student growth reporting system next week. Lastly, I always like, with all speaking opportunities, to promote the excellent work that's being done across the state. Wayne Reese has developed an excellent set of modules on measurement of student growth. SItimeline.com has some excellent guidance for measuring student growth within educator evaluations. Traverse Bay Area ISD has developed some great trainings for SLOs. Mesa has done some great work with their student Growth Plus network. For teachers of arts, the Maya project has developed some excellent assessments that can be used to measuring student growth. There's for those who are interested in looking at what different Michigan SLO examples for measuring student growth with data is locally LEA. Our workshops, our districts that have attended our workshops have provided some examples, and then that last bullet point provides some districts that are doing some excellent work with educator evaluations and are engaged in some innovative practice that could be considered exemplar for Michigan districts. Finally, as we've talked a few times about the student growth workshops that we provide districts across the state. Our next set of a 2-day workshops are designed for district teams of teacher leaders, building principals, and central office staff to sit around the table, hearing the same information, work with MD consultants such as Joe Priest and myself to develop a set of district policies and practices. There's some guided engagement. There's some presentation, but most of the time is teamwork time to develop these policies with MD consultant guidance to help guide districts through making these important decisions, knowing the strengths and limitations for all the decisions that can be made. And as well as guidance for using the MDE SGP educator evaluation calculator tool and other tools as well. So it's a good 2 days. So that's the end of the webinar, and hopefully this has been a useful hour for you. I've provided my email address if you think of questions that you did not ask during the webinar that you may have. I welcome you to email me any additional questions that you have, and I will respond to those. And thank you so much for spending this hour with us and for learning about SGPs with us. And I hope to see you at the webinars that we have, both the EVOS webinars and the other webinars that our office will be providing that center around educator evaluation and teacher retention that we will have forthcoming. So thanks again, and have a great rest of the day and weekend.